Christopher Watts is super compliant. He's always been very compliant, and he's probably what professionals would call conflict averse. And he's always been this way. And whether this is something that's come through childhood because it's related to the flight, fight, or freeze survival mechanisms, and it would come under the umbrella of freeze, whereby you're super compliant, you're a loving child, you are docile, you please, you bring cups of tea, you are loving, you express, oh, I love you, mummy, etc. Because it's a type of freeze. It's a type of don't see me, don't bring anything down on me, just let's keep everything calm, and let's not invoke the wrath of this person, this abuser, this unstable caretaker. And it could be something to do with that. Okay, we don't know enough about his childhood, but I think some of us do guess that it wasn't entirely pleasant for him. Now, being so compliant, we can see it's something very deeply ingrained in him, because he's continuing with this compliance, with this conflict avoidance in prison. Because, and it's kind of ironic that he's been in dodge, because he's dodging conflict all the time. He desperately wants to be liked, and he dodges conflict. So he's giving away everything in prison of his to be liked, maybe to avoid conflict, but possibly because he thinks it will elevate his status as a good person. And I mean, there's a fractional chance that maybe it's because all the other things were in the cell to cover up the fact that his boxer shorts and Vaseline were in there as well. No. He's getting played all the time by people that have stronger personalities and that are more worldly. And it's something that he's learned to do and continued to do his entire life. And it means that he's never learned that conflict can be healthy. Conflict doesn't have to mean rage, loss, harm, lack of love, etc. Conflict can mean healing and resolution, moving forward, a new, happier status quo. So he hasn't learned that art of negotiation. When he's talking Nikki Kessinger down from a ledge, I mean, what I think he's saying really is, well, I gave in and then everything was okay again. So he's certainly stuck between a rock and a hard place. He's got, his origin family, Cindy. I mean, maybe this is why he's connected so deeply with Ronnie. Ronnie is not into conflict with him and bossing him around, and it was very easy. It was the one easy relationship in his life, perhaps. So he's got his origin family with Cindy and perhaps grandparents, where he's learned this freeze survival mechanism, and then he's in a marriage where he's learned this freeze survival mechanism. He never stands up for himself. He never just says, look, well, I feel like we should live here, not there, that we should get a smaller house, not this large house. And he's gone along with it, and maybe because it was not just because it was easy to be compliant, even if he 100% disagrees. Maybe some of these things he wanted. I don't know. But, he is continually subjugating himself, continually avoiding conflict and just being vulnerable in a way, being pushed around in a way, being compliant. I mean, Chris, take a lie detector test. Okay. Chris, confess. Okay. He probably enjoyed, even though it was a little bit of a kind of a backhanded thing. He probably enjoyed being a silver fox. He probably enjoyed being Rain Man. I mean, Rain Man was for his intellect, for the mental acuity that he had, in remembering things and being able to remember detail and help others out. And he certainly had a type of intellect and skill, and I guess he had his type of emotional intellect was being placating and not rocking the boat. But can you imagine the seething, simmering resentment and rage in here that he had? Well, I mean, I think we can imagine it because we know what he did. And the question is, who had guilty knowledge? Who has given him these little shoves? Because he is so compliant, because he is so open to manipulation and to being pushed along or drawn along into other people's, to fulfill other people's desires and to make other people happy, even at the detriment of their own life, his children's life. It did have to stop somewhere. I mean, it doesn't seem to have stopped now, and he's in prison, and this is, it's quite worrisome, isn't it? That, this is very deep within him, this compliance and this need to be liked at the expense of everything. So, to be so afraid of conflict, to feel that conflict can only ever bring him pain and loss and, to never have learned that conflict is okay, that it can be healthy, that is part of a healthy human experience. I mean, every animal, you see them fighting it out, who comes up onto, and working out structure, working out pack hierarchy. Once that pack hierarchy is set in place, everyone is happy, but it doesn't just happen. So he was letting it just happen, and therefore was the hierarchy really set up in the way that was best for the health of his pack? Because normally that's what happens. The hierarchy gets set up to achieve an emotional balance, a physical safety net for that pack, and it is set up in the way that will most ensure survival of the pack. You see in unhealthy households, unhealthy packs, where the leader is not a strong leader, where the dogs in a household with a person that is not a natural leader, who is weak, the dog has no faith in that person. They try to run the show, and they don't know what to do. They don't know where food comes from. They don't know how to obtain things in life and to take care. They just know that if they don't try it, everything falls to shit, because this person here is useless, okay? Because they are not leading. And so Chris Watts's pack, it was never healthy. In his pack of origin, in his household he was in with Shan'ann, he perhaps could have led his family into a healthier, safer life and a long-lasting one. And I think he could have been very happy if he had that strength and that bravery and that courage and that knowledge, the ability to confront conflict and resolve it, and maybe lead the family to safety and happiness in a sensible way, because he had intelligence. He probably had the skills to do it. But Shan'ann, who didn't have the financial skills, was running the finances and driving that household. So it's an unhealthy leadership and an imbalance in a pack. This pack wasn't going to survive one way or another. They were going to divorce. There was going to be pain, loss, continued conflict, which Chriswatts can't stand. He can't abide it. He needs zero conflict in life. And just a powder keg. And then along comes Nicole. There's some discussion about, did they meet at the gym? Was it unmasked or true psych ward? That's thought, well, hey, all this talk about the gym, and it's close to your gym, when she was trying to find the apartment for him. And this is when she really would have been thinking about those finances, and talking to him about it. What are you going to do for money when you're supporting that family? And, what sort of home? Oh, you're just going to get this shitty apartment? But, talking about the gym, maybe they did meet that year earlier, have some sort of sexual affair or some sort of attraction, and then, wow, you're working here? She might have known that he already worked through Anadarko if this was on Facebook, and she'd stalked the family. Perhaps when a job opportunity came up, she was working through an agency, but she would have leapt at it. Or maybe she said, hey, Anadarko is a company that I'd really like to work for. We don't know if she is been close bunny boiler, or if this has just happened organically, and when they've met again or met, they had chemistry. But she's, as I've said, another strong woman. I mean, he's stuck. Okay, can you imagine? I mean, he's playing Metallica's Battery, for God's sake, people, metal and death metal, heavy metal, it lets people express emotion. That's why they connect with it. They like it. And the scream music. And I mean, shit, I get it sometimes, there's, music connects you in so many ways to so many of your emotions, doesn't it? This is why we cry to love songs when we're brokenhearted. And this is why we dance on the beach. This is why we get into drum and bass. This is why we love classical. We love all types of music to connect with all the parts of ourselves and all the natural human emotions. And it's so telling, isn't it? I mean, he liked metal. I'm not surprised. Lots of people do, but I think in this case, the juxtaposition of the aura, the idea of this family man and this guy that mows the lawns and raises his little girls, and the picket fence lifestyle, metal makes sense, because that's that outlet for him. He hasn't got an outlet, and the gymnasium would have been that. And for all intents and purposes, from what we know, before Nicole came along, Shan'ann and Chris did have a good sex life. I don't know how different it would have been, though, to the one that he's having with Nikki, but I imagine that was a very powerful bonding sexual connection. And when the murders occurred, they were in that obsessed, they admit it themselves. They can say it. They're hooked. They're addicted. They're hooked. Excuse me, allergies. so sorry, just a drippy nose. Allergies in Brisbane, our flowers, the pollens, everything, it's flying around out there. It's like some sort of yellow haze. We get the blue haze in our mountain regions. That's why they're called the Blue Mountains, inland from Sydney. In Brisbane, we've got a huge hinterland. Well, it runs up and down the east coast, the hinterland, you know. It only breaks away in certain areas, but it's the green belt, kind of. And, yeah, and Brisbane, as you might have seen, we're covered in trees. And anyway, why am I digressing into allergies? Sorry. So, yeah, what I really just came on to talk about here was how I do see Chris Watts as this very compliant person. And I don't know if this is conditioning or just a need that he is filling for himself on his own terms, or if it's conditioning from childhood. But I think it's a damaged way of being. It's not healthy to be that compliant. I think when you meet someone that's like that, I mean, some people are just, you know, naturally zen, but you usually find their rough edges, don't you? And that's when you've got to not judge them, and you've got to realize that they're human, I guess. But with Chris, I guess it was just a matter of time. When are you going to see it? What's going to happen, you know? Yeah, and he exploded. But the question is, you know, what guilty knowledge did Nikki Kessinger have, and when? Because it does seem, on one hand, that, you know, this is a premeditated crime. But did NK only know in that 1 minute conversation, and could she have saved Shan'ann Ruzek's life if she knew the little girls were dead? Or is it a matter of they really did just have one of their boring conversations about protein powder and anal sex, and she had no idea? I think the reason she is unlikable is because she hasn't just admitted that, you know, yeah, I was playing those games. On one hand, I'm sending him sexy pictures. On the other hand, I'm saying, stay in your marriage and work on it. On one hand, she's saying, I haven't, you know, had those firsts, and if I'm with you, what firsts can I have? There's really only one, and it's that I would give you a son. And then on the other hand, she's saying, oh no, I encouraged him to stay with his children. He's got a beautiful wife, a home, these children, stay there. You know, she has played games. She's trying to act all pious. How you can act pious when you're having an affair, I don't know. That's kind of this contradiction. You know, no, I was the perfect mistress. You know, and I think that's why she was so dislikable. Part of the reason why a lot of us found her dislikable. I mean, I felt sorry for her at first. I thought, here is a woman who, okay, she's having an affair, but, you know, this is imagine how devastated she is and blown away, and, you know, you wouldn't know how you would act. And but I think that I would be sobbing and saying, I'm so ashamed, because I knew what I was doing, because I wanted him to want me. I wanted him to love me, and I did want him to leave his wife. You say those things because it's bravado, and you think you want to, you know, be seen by them to be saying the right things, but really you want them to choose you. And, you know, so I'm in my bikini, I'm doing my yoga poses, I am the fun girl, I'm the I'm the cool girl, you know, and I'm so ashamed. But, you know, because she didn't say this, and for whatever reason, it just seemed like, wow, you know, okay, what else is there? And, you know, dumping the phone, I mean, that's given her this anonymity of life in a way, hasn't it? The phone dump. I kind of don't really want to know what's on it, but I wish the police knew. I don't know that necessarily it needed to be in discovery, but I wish law enforcement had done a better job. And this is why I say, you know, too, we need an investigation on the investigation. Is it called an inquiry? Because, I mean, wow. So yeah, I'm not surprised that Chris Watts has snapped, and he's just done it so violently. Taking his family that he's just murdered to his work site is very queer, but so I don't know, that tears me up a little bit about the premeditation. But then I think, well, we don't know what was planned with the Lexus car. Was it going to be crashed out there as if Shan'ann and some flurry had gone out there to teach him a lesson and kill the kids in front of him? Or was he going to blow up the oil field and make out that Shan'ann was out there too, to see him, to patch up their marriage, or I don't know. But it doesn't seem well thought out, because we see other family annihilators, and the other one, like Josh Powell, take people elsewhere. Susan Powell hasn't been found. I believe Charlie and Braden could have been saved. Sorry, this is bad to mix all these topics, isn't it? Tell me if it really annoys you, because then I'll try harder. But, you're talking about one thing, and of course you can think about another. Charlie and Braden Powell, well, I mean, really, they should be alive today. We know that, even though it might be, okay, this is circumstantial evidence against Josh Powell. There were things that pointed strongly to the dangers that those children were in. And, when you find out things like they had GPS tracking on his car, but they never went to these sites, because it seems like they didn't find anything in all these dumpsters that he went to, etc. I mean, you just wonder where else all the ball was dropped, So, yeah. Chris Watts, wishy-washy doufus, because he thinks that's how you get liked, and I think instead it just made him as dull as a dish rag. But to the right people, it made him someone that's perfect for their use at the time. I don't know, would Nikki Kessinger have gotten sick of him? Would they have gotten married and had a child and then gotten divorced? Who knows? Or would they have been a good match forever? Yeah, what did she know? What did Jamie and Cindy know? What did Ronnie know and when? I mean, it's, I feel like there's guilty knowledge in places where, they've said, what's going to happen? This is going to cost you. Even if it's just putting into this guy's mind, this person that they know is so compliant, he's just such a good guy, they never argue. Telling that sort of person these things, well, he's got no way out. He doesn't know how to negotiate out of this. And you're telling him that his life is fucked. 23:42. Yet again, I did think this would be 9 minutes. Yeah, so Chris Watts, he's just so compliant. He will do anything you tell him. He'll do, he just can't have conflict, and he wants you to think he's a good guy. I mean, everyone finds religion in prison, don't they? Everyone's a good guy in prison. Dusty Draper, for one, sort of thing. I didn't say that. Did I say that? They find their religion, their spirituality. Suddenly they're reading the Bible every day. They're good people, desperate to be liked and forgiven. And I think Chris Watts is easily pushed into things and led. And if he's got parents or an author or someone who wants to use him, telling him they're going to do something for him or help him show his good guy image, of course he's going to go along with it. I think he's just conditioned, or he's naturally just going to do it. So yeah, but that investigation, as I've said before, the books shouldn't have been shut. They should not have closed those books until they knew when the children were killed and how, when Shan'ann was killed and how, where all these crimes took place, the movements, every single movement. Was one of the children alive? Were they alive? I'm not sure about the shadows. I'm not. But, you know, if one child was alive, who was it likely to be? What hell did they go through? And what did he do with the other child? Were they in that fridge? I mean, we've got L46, the dog handler, whose dog is giving these indications all through the house. And it doesn't seem like this was followed up. Was a child kept in that fridge overnight downstairs in the basement? You know, who was in the house when Chris Watts arrived? Was Nicole there? She was late to work that day, wasn't she? And she pinged at 6 o'clock in the morning. She'd never pinged there before on her way to work. Was she on her way in? Was she on her way there or out? Maybe, was she hiding in the house? Was she hiding in the Lexus? When police arrived there at first, and Nicole Atkinson and two of her children were walking through that home. How remiss is that? Yeah. I think Chris Watts did have, at least he had a few hours of feeling as high as a fucking kite. His adrenaline. Yeah. But now, he's somewhere where he's getting told what to do, how to live. He's probably happy enough. I mean, the thing that'll be getting him, unless he's having, sexual relationships in prison, is that now he's not free to have sexual relationships, and sex is obviously, a really important part of his life and his makeup. So he'll be missing that. But maybe if he's having interactions of that nature, maybe he's perfectly happy in prison. He's got no stress, pressure. He's got people that are supporting him, looking out for him. He's got plenty of opportunities to play this, hey, I'm a good guy game, It could just be a big relief. Prison is a relief for some people. Freedom is a burden for some people. But yeah, I'm sure he's got lots of regrets. I just don't know where they are. One thing I am sure of, Chris Watts hates Cindy Watts. Yeah. See you later.